Ahoy hoy Bionicle fans, welcome to this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series, the show where we spotlight MOCs from across the Bionicle community to inspire you. What we're going to be focusing on today in this episode of BIS is weapons. So I kind of want to look at some more obscure weapons from across the Bionicle community because, hey, a good MOC looks nice, but when you can give it a really cool weapon, it's kind of just that nice little cherry on top that's just the perfect little something that just makes it great. So let's take a look at some weird and obscure ones and just some kind of clever ideas and things for weapons because, hey, that's always pretty cool. Additionally, all of these MOCs are from the MOC League, which I did a sort of previous video talking about that. So I'll sort of touch upon that as we talk about the individual MOCs. So let's do that right now. The first one we've got today is by Ezreal, and this is Beelzebub, Starvation's Voice. So this is from round one of, we're currently in round 2, that's why I got confused. This is from round 1 of the MOC League, and I believe the theme was put your guns out. Essentially, it was build a weapon, and I believe each person sort of got different sort of, types of weapons that they had to build and all that sort of stuff. But the overall concept was weapons, so it's very fitting for this episode. Yes, so what I like about this weapon specifically is the fact that it is a sort of like living organism of sorts. Because, yeah, it's awesome to have a big old metal sword or a wooden sword or a diamond sword if we're playing Minecraft. But nothing wrong with making it totally weird and obscure or just sort of kind of out there and different. Because, hey, maybe that kind of fits the MOC that you want to do. Ezreal has said to me before that he's enjoyed building more sort of like gore-focused MOCs in that sense here. So what a great idea to build this sort of like demon-like character here and give them this sort of like hellish sword. And I mean, you can kind of Google certain stuff like that. There's all sorts of like, even like mimics from D&D and things like that. Weird, obscure like weapons or artifacts or different things that have been infected by something or sentient creatures with teeth and evil eyes and stuff like that. So it's a really cool idea to put that into a sword of sorts here. And I mean, it certainly looks like it would hurt if you got attacked by it, that's for sure. But I like the choice of giving it the eye and sort of putting that towards sort of the base of the sword here. And then the choice of using some of these red round plate pieces here. Because these naturally have holes in the top of the studs there, so you can insert the different teeth into it, and you can get a design much like this. So yeah, it's cool, it's unique, it's different, and I kind of think that's such a great way to approach weapon designs for characters, is to lean into weird living organic things, or maybe the weapon has some sort of unique power, so how is that sort of represented on the actual weapon itself? Or yeah, I don't know, just how can you sort of stretch the limits of what a weapon is? Can you make it a little bit more obscure, a little bit more different? Because I don't know, then the MOC's going to stand out a little bit more, people will take notice of it, and I mean, even if you don't want people to take notice of it, it probably will be more fun to build and more sort of exciting for you. So hey, I think that's a really cool idea. Let's talk a bit about the actual MOC itself now. I love this head design here, using the Von Nebula head, I believe that is, and then putting some of these larger spike pieces into the sort of like eye gaps on that piece there. Just makes for a cool design, and especially when you kind of complement it with those Hero Factory cores, just sort of sandwiched together like that, it does make a very, very nice tooth design there. And makes for a really cool kind of demon head in general. So, yeah, really, really sick design. I love the torso design too. I mean, a lot of it's kind of covered with capes and stuff, but it's still a pretty solid design. You can see a bunch of those black-tailed sort of tentacle pieces there, making up this sort of like skeletal rib cage of sorts. And then I like the sort of gentle angle that they have, how they sort of like kind of flare out in a sort of kind of curved shape there. And then inside you can see these red tentacle pieces and other things there, kind of looking like guts or something kind of creepy. It just works really, really well for a, demonic, hellish, devil-like sort of torso design of sorts. So yeah, really, really cool. So a lovely MOC here. Let's move over to the next weapon, and this one here is by Lego role player Adjusted, and this is Self-Defense Umbrella. So yeah, I was mentioning before the idea of like weird, obscure, out there weapons that can certainly make a MOC unique, and this is a very, very good example of that. I love the idea that this character has an umbrella with spikes on the edges, and that's their weapon. You know, maybe it's not actually made of cloth, it's like Kevlar or some sort of like reinforced material, so you could kind of pop it out and use it as a shield, or stab people with it, or spin it around for like spinny attacks and stuff like that. It's cool. It's surprisingly very fitting for a weapon, and it's just so distinct and different. It's really clever. So not only is that, I think, a good idea for a contest to have such a weird, out there, cool idea that's just kind of exciting and different, because it'll make you stand out, and you're probably more likely to win if you have something like that being used in the contest. But yeah, it's just a cool, fun idea. So the blue sort of cloth piece, this is a parachute piece that comes on a sort of semi-recent but slightly older Police Lego City set. These also came in orange, but yeah, they mainly, you know, in this example here, came in dark blue. They're not cheap. I checked on Bricklink. That's the Australian price, of course, but, you know, it's still expensive for a piece of cloth, you know what I mean? So unfortunately, if you want to recreate this set, you might have to pay a little bit extra, but at least it's not like $1,000 or something like that. Still, it works very, very nicely for this umbrella design here, and that cloth is sort of very flexible and stuff too, so it's nice that you could very easily sort of, you know, stow the umbrella or pop it out and stuff like that. So the perfect choice, I think, there for the cloth element. And yeah, I really, really like that parachute piece. It's really nice to see it being used here in a very good fashion. There's some other cloth pieces being used here on this MOC. I believe this is the Red Praetorian Guard cloth. I don't know. It might be something different. It's a little hard to tell from these images here. But that being used as sort of like a waistcoat, or maybe like a raincoat of sorts. I don't know. It's a very nice design, and you know, I always like seeing cloth being used, so it's great to see two nice examples on this MOC here. It's awesome. The hair design on this MOC is also very interesting. The fact that he's using one of these Ben 10 kind of claw pieces in dark blue there, and just sort of resting it on the top of the head. I don't know, it looks like a mohawk of sorts, some sort of more obscure, unique hair design, and I just really like it. So yeah, just a bit of fun, you know, and I think that's just the embodiment of this entire MOC. It's just a little bit of fun. It's a little bit more goofy and out there and cool, but man, that's awesome, you know? So yeah, love seeing people really playing and pushing the limits there of what makes a weapon, and going a little bit more obscure. It's fun. Let's move over to the next MOC. This is by Margit, and this is Herbalist, or the Herbalist, if as you Americans might say. So I adore this. This is such a cool MOC. And the weapon, there's nothing necessarily in the description on Flickr about what the weapon is on this, but I mean, it's safe to say that it's this interesting staff and this sort of like potion of sorts. And I like that idea, especially because they're a herbalist or an herbalist. And I think this MOC is super unique because the weapons are kind of painting a picture of what the character is or who the character is, you know? Like you get the sense that they're this, you know, interesting raven character with this big cloak and a hunch and stuff like that. But they've got this staff that has like plants and vines and things growing on it. So you go like, oh, okay, they're probably someone who's very in touch with nature and likes to kind of use the resources and leaves and vines and things around them to maybe perform some sort of magic, because there's that orb on the top there. Or sort of, you know, grinds up all these different materials and things and makes potions with them and, you know, sells them to people and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see how the weapons are really sort of painting a picture of who this character is. And there's a sort of a kind of air of mystery about them as well. It's kind of fun. So yeah, definitely have a think about how the weapon can kind of describe your character in some sense, or sort of embody the characteristics that you want to convey with your character, because I think this is a good example of exactly that. So great idea to use a slightly older piece. I mean, it came on like Sandy from SpongeBob, and it came in a few other different sets. This sort of transclear like globe piece here, and then putting some sort of translucent piece inside there, so that it looks like a vial of sorts with like some sort of liquid inside of it there. That's a very nice little part use there. And while it may not specifically be a weapon, I guess you could still sort of throw that at someone and there's maybe like acid inside it or something. So in a sense, it could be a weapon, you know, or it's some sort of like potion you drink and it gives you strength, or it, you know, makes you stronger or something like that. So it it's a different type of weapon in that sense, so it's still very fitting. And the staff here using some of these newer sort of like hose kind of wire pieces here, which have those nice sort of like connections to them, which you can insert a bar into, so it's very easy to sort of attach it, although it appears that it's just attached with a rubber band here on this specific design, but hey, that still works. And then some different leaf pieces, and then one of the Zamaspheres there. It makes for a really nice design, and definitely take a look at some of the different plant pieces from various system Lego sets, because I feel like every time I see them being used on a Bionicle MOC, it always looks really nice, and some of those pieces come in such vibrant, beautiful colors. So it's certainly something to look into, because there's a lot of possibilities there. It's really cool. The head design on this is a slightly more obscure piece, which I like seeing. This is from a Dino Attack set. I think this was like 2004, maybe? Someone can fact check me on that. I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah, a really different piece that's quite detailed and quite nice. And I think it works perfectly on this MOC here. It's a lovely addition, and I always enjoy seeing weird, obscure pieces being used, which this is pretty much one of those. So very cool. An awesome overall MOC, and one nice little detail I'll quickly comment on. I love these like Chima feather pieces being used, and the fact that some are black, but some are also that dark blue. You know, obviously this MOC is primarily just purely black with the color scheme, but I love those little accents of dark blue because, I don't know, it just sort of differentiates things. It makes things a bit more visually interesting. If it was just a sea of black, it might be a bit more boring, but that sort of pop of dark blue, which is a color that's close enough to black that it kind of blends in, just works. And it kind of reminds me of some of the sort of like sheen and sort of slight color difference you can see on like crows and ravens and stuff like that. So it seems very fitting and very appropriate. I love that sort of slight inclusion of an additional color there. It's really cool. So that's this MOC. Let's move over to the final MOC, the one we saw in the thumbnail. It's by Matt Goldberg, and this is Spartan Astoc. So, obviously, inspired by Halo, and the weapon, of course, is an energy sword from Halo. So, Matt here was saying that he specifically wanted to play around with some of the new pieces from one of the more recent waves of Ninjago, all the sort of crystallization stuff. And using the pieces, I mean, these specifically came in Crystal King, but I think they came in a few different sets there, because they're just kind of cool pieces. And I love the idea of doing that for weapons, or kind of just for anything with a MOC. If a new set's come out and it has some exciting new pieces, and you've bought it, or you want to buy it, or whatever, play around with those pieces. See what sort of stuff you can come up with them. You know, maybe you've got some intricate, clever part use of, oh, I'm going to use this piece, turn it upside down, attach this to it, and suddenly it's something completely different, and that's great. But you could also do something fairly simplistic like this and just go, hey, these crystal pieces in trans pink look awesome, and they kind of would look nice as an energy sword. Let me just attach them to a couple pieces, and there you go, I've made an energy sword. It's a really clever, simple idea, and it's just so cool to see new pieces being played with, because it's an exciting thing to do. And you know, that's one of my favorite things about the Lego hobby, is when new sets come out and you're like, oh, what kind of new pieces are there? What creative possibilities can I come up with when I use these? So yeah, that's just exciting and cool, you know, it's awesome. Great to see a Spartan also built in Lego here. I love the face design in general here, using a gold Nuva shoulder piece here to form the sort of visor of the helmet there. Very appropriate and very fitting. And I also quite enjoy the inclusion of the Therno 3.0 like eagle helmet pieces, sort of like shoulder armor. That's kind of blended very nicely with the rest of the armor pieces there. And I don't know, it just works well as shoulder armor. It's pretty cool. The gun's also quite nice too, obviously very heavily inspired by Halo. And we can see that same piece I was talking to you about before, the sort of like curved 1x2 plate in black being used at the front of the gun there to give it that sort of, you know, accurate kind of curved look and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. And yeah, definitely take a look at video games and stuff like that, because there's often a lot of really awesome, well-designed weapons in those games. So maybe like you can draw some inspiration from that, whether you directly build that weapon or you build something that's sort of inspired by it and apply it to a different context. It could work well. So yeah, an awesome bunch of MOCs with some really awesome weapons in them. Hope you very much enjoyed. Yeah, hey, if you want to submit some of your own MOCs to the show, you can submit them through the submission email that's on your screen right now. Or if you enjoyed seeing the MOCs that you saw in this episode, you can check the links in the description to see some of the other stuff that these builders did. Additionally, there's links to my social media if you want to check some of that stuff out. And that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys. Happy building, and bye for now.